Okay, so with this chapter, 18A, it's all using the sine, cos, and tan rules. So as this, which we often remember by using the Sohcahtoa. That's our little remembering. So the first letter tells you what rule it is, and then so sine, angle, and then the O and the H, and the first letter means it goes on top. All right, so that can be a quick way to remember. Now, these formulas, now sometimes they call them ratios, so they're the rules. These rules are used only in a right angle triangle, so it has to be a right angle triangle. So you have to know it's a right angle triangle to use it. Otherwise you can't. All right, and so this right angle triangle gets labeled. Now the hypotenuse is always opposite that right angle, so it's always on the other side. And the other two sides get labelled opposite and adjacent, and it depends where the angle's been placed. Because it's been placed down here, this side becomes the opposite and this side becomes the adjacent. If I drew a triangle, like the same triangle, but I said this was the angle of that we're looking at, then the hypotenuse doesn't change, but this would be opposite and this would be adjacent. Okay, now this is really important particularly for methods kids. Your calculator must be in degree mode, and you're going to have and for methods it must be in radian mode. So you need to be really careful and be thinking and looking at that when you're going into either testing. All right, so we'll check that it is. All right, so let's do some examples using our Sohcahtoa, which you've done plenty of times. You've done this since year 9. So find the value of x to 2 decimal places. So you would label up your triangle. You've got the hypotenuse and you've also got the opposite. So that means you would be using the sine rule. And you pop in what you know. So you've got 29.6 equals x over 80. And you can use your solve function on your calculator, and that is no problem. And so you can just do solve and find your answer. So just put x equals 39.52 centimeters, because the question was in centimeters. All right, so if we go about this one and we have a look at the second one, we've actually got the adjacent, and they've asked me to find the hypotenuse, the 2 decimal places. So this is the question. So if we've got that one, we're using cos a over h. So you just pop in what you know. You've got 15 equals 10 over x, and you can use the solve again. That's no problem. As I said, they're just testing what formula to use, not that you can rearrange that or anything. And then the last one, when you're finding the magnitude, so when you're finding the angle, that's when you might have to put the n solve in it. So if you have a look here, we look at the triangle, we've got the adjacent and we've got the opposite. So I'd be using tan. So tan is O over A. So I pop in what I know, which is 11 over 3. So if you're using the solve function in your calculator, you would just put a little n in front of it and solve, comma x, and that will give you the angle without things. So I'll just show you why. Degrees. I tried to get a few exam questions, but in the end, this one actually ends up being Pythagoras, which is another right angle triangle formula. So it just said you had to find the distance between the 2 trees, so which would be along there. So you could use this triangle in here, and that was A, that was B. Now you could see this was 30 and this was 45, so you knew this was 15, and they said the rope in between them or whatever was 25, and you needed to find this distance. So that would be a Pythagoras where you set it up. You'd say 25 squared equals 15 squared plus x squared, and you would just solve in your calc, comma x, and you'd find out that distance AB, which is what they wanted. So I accidentally put a Pythagoras. So here's a angle SOHCAHTOA one. So the shelf sits against the wall at a 90-degree angle. So they just showed you that there. And the shelf is supported by a 26 centimeter bracket and forms a 30-degree angle with the wall as shown. Now it says find the value of H between the edge of the shelf and the bracket in centimeters. So along here, that's H. That's what they want. But you can see we've got this triangle in here. And this distance, say we call along there, is X. So hopefully you can see if you did 37 minus X, that would give you what H? That would equal H. All right, so what I'm going to do is use this blue triangle in here. And I've got a few pieces of information, and I'm therefore going to find out what X is using the SOHCAHTOA. So I can see that I have the hypotenuse and I've got the opposite. So I'm going to say sine 30 equals X over 26. And so then you can use solve or whatever and you'll find out what X is. Okay, so we get X equals 13. So we might say therefore 37 minus 13 equals H. So 24 centimeters equals H. So there's a question that you might get. This next one, it says, we've got the crane used to ship different containers, and they give you a few distances here. They say the length of the boom, BC, is 25. So you see that in there is 25 from here. And the hoist, AB, is 15. So we got told that was 15. And it says write a calculation to show that AC is 20. So this is another Pythag question. So what you'd have to do is show the calculation. So I'd probably say that 25 squared, because remember Pythag is C squared equals A squared plus B squared, and this is the C. So I'd say 25 squared equals 15 squared plus, now AC, it's because it said show that AC is squared. So you might, you could do that and then just have it rearranged if you like. You might pop it like that, equals AC, therefore 20 equals AC. But as long as you've got the formula written out to show how it's done, that's okay. So that was Pythag, but then here, down here, it says find the angle ACB. So when you have ACB, they want the one in the middle. So they want this down here. So if I just redrew what I've got, they want this angle, and I could use any values. I'm just going to use those two that they gave me. And so I'm going to say I've got opposite over hypotenuse. So I'm going to go sine angle equals 15 over 25. So if you want, you can use n solve, comma, we'll put x maybe. And you can do n solve and find it, or you can, if you really want, you can just use the inverse like that and find it. So we'll just use that. Okay, so it said to the nearest degree, so I'll write angle ACB equals 37 degrees. All right.